Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now August 13th of 2024, and already Deadpool and Wolverine has crossed $1 billion at the box office worldwide, and rising, by the way. And this is all because of those out there like Ryan Reynolds, Shawn, Levy, the director of this film, writers Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick. All four of them, by the way, took a stand against the Disney executives, against those like Bob Iger, the CEO, to say it's our way or the highway. We are making this movie based on how we want to actually present it to the fans and to the general public to create pure entertainment. And that's exactly why this movie is just that, pure entertainment. There is really no ideology connected to this thing, or any kind of serious Disney agenda attached to it all. And that's exactly why people are able to really have an urge to see this thing 2, 3, 4, heck even 5 times. I've had a lot of people talking about that's how many times they've seen it. Now, what's interesting about this is that there's also been a lot of drama happening behind the scenes between Marvel Studios and the Walt Disney Company involving Ryan Reynolds and Brie Larson. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So, one interesting thing that's been going on between Ryan and Brie Larson has a lot to do with the fact of the removal of Captain Marvel. There's a lot more updates involving this ongoing drama happening, of course, between Larson and Reynolds, and it continues. Now, interestingly enough, we know that this movie had a lot of alterations and revisions that were applied to the film over the course of 5 to 6 months. We know that right around that May to April, I would say right around between April and May, as you were crossing into the month of early May, I would say, is when the reshoots really began to kind of stagnate and kind of really begin to level out. But what's interesting about this has a lot more to do with Brie Larson. Now, with both Ryan Reynolds and Shawn Levy already celebrating the success over Deadpool and Wolverine as it crossed $1 billion at the box office worldwide and climbing, one major development now has more to do with actress Brie Larson and the ongoing drama behind the scenes between herself and Ryan Reynolds. One crucial update to this scenario now involves how Larson, as it turns out, had 4 scenes in total that were filmed for Deadpool and Wolverine that got axed behind the scenes. That was decided by Ryan Reynolds and took much convincing to the Walt Disney Company studio heads. Already, Larson is in the working stages of making some form of a legal case, since she claims that her cameos and scenes were part of her contract. Just recently, more drama sparked, however, between Larson after Reynolds, of course, not only decided to exclude all of the deleted scenes of Brie as Captain Marvel from the upcoming Blu-ray edition of the film, but also how a planned BTS reel for Deadpool and Wolverine that featured tons of behind-the-scenes footage of Brie Larson as Captain Marvel is now also going to be removed as well from the planned digital and disc release of Deadpool and Wolverine, something that Larson was also part of her contract, that she claims that all BTS footage was to be included in the digital release of Deadpool and Wolverine. It turns out there were many other scenes that Brie Larson had shot that were described as incomplete and never made it to post-production. One scene specifically that was included in the BTS reel of Deadpool and Wolverine that will now no longer be, of course, involved or no longer appearing, actually included Captain Marvel dancing and singing, and was going to be an alternate version of the scene that was actually a part of the movie The Marvels. The scene was partially filmed, however, and even was going to feature Ms. Marvel at some point. However, that scene never reached that stage. The other partially shot sequence that was also described as a scene that was improvised and pushed to be made by the Walt Disney Company, including Captain Marvel fighting both Deadpool and Wolverine in a 2-on-1 battle, essentially. Already, Brie Larson had multiple outbursts with Ryan Reynolds at both Marvel Studios and the Walt Disney Company. It was so severe that the drama rattled throughout both studios. Larson reportedly puts full blame on Ryan Reynolds for shifting away from Disney's DEI agenda and their ideology, and how it's not fit for the Marvel Universe at all. And these arguments between the two recently sparked, which caused the grudge between the two actors. Now, guys, before I move on, let me just say one thing about this. Now, the fact that Ryan really went all out to make sure that no content featuring She-Hulk or Captain Marvel would be seen in Deadpool and Wolverine, I think is legendary. I think it's a big move on his part. The fact that he really took a stand against Disney and put his foot down and really pushed Disney in a corner to make them cave is a big deal. That means he has some form of influence on top of Disney based on how things should be produced, how things should be done, where initially Disney was kind of calling the shots here and there. You know, trying to force specific scenes in the movie, forcing things on writers Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick that they did not want to write or do or improvise, whatever have you. And that was another problem for this movie, right around that April to May range, right around the reshoots that were very quick, by the way. It only lasted like 3 to 4 weeks and then it wrapped immediately. But what's interesting about this has more to do with the fact that the BTS reel was actually going to feature tons of footage, extra footage of Captain Marvel, She-Hulk, and other surprise cameos that were supposed to make it into the movie that never made it to the final cut. So the BTS reel that we will be getting on disc most likely is going to be vastly shorter than what was originally planned. We'll have to wait and see. But what's interesting about this even further, on top of everything here, is that Larson is already turning her head to Bob Iger and the Disney executives for listening to Ryan Reynolds, convincing them to not only deleting her scenes from the Blu-ray, but also the massive behind-the-scenes reel that was also going to heavily feature Larson and Tatiana Maslany of many other scenes that were improvised and done off the cuff, essentially, from Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, that were forced to make those actual sequences with Ryan by the Disney heads at the time. So, I've said this before in the past, and I'll say it again, but there are way too many examples that Disney really tries to take advantage of their ideology and shoving it into Marvel brands out there. I mean, we saw this happen with the Marvels, we've seen this happen with other products out there, and they were trying to make it happen with Deadpool and Wolverine. You guys may recall what we talked about months ago, about how Disney wanted to throw in their ideology, their DEI agenda, when reshoots began back in April of this year that lasted until the very end of May into very early June. And at that time, you know, that's when Ryan and the rest of his team, like Ryan, of course, had teamed up with Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick, and Shawn Levy, really battling the Disney heads to prevent that DEI nonsense. And they successfully did it. Pretty much 99.9% of all of their agenda-driven garbage was excluded from the movie. So, again, like I've said before, there's been a lot of back and forth when it comes to the current state of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the current state of the MCU. There's been a lot of reactions based on Robert Downey Jr.'s return as Doctor Doom. I know a lot of people have differing opinions on that. Some would say it's very desperate. I would say the same. That's how I feel, by the way, guys. That's just my opinion. You can have yours. You know, let's respect each other's, but that's my opinion, that's my take. It is a desperate move by Kevin Feige, and we know he's in complete panic mode behind the scenes, by the way, to really reverse, to kind of course correct, essentially, the MCU. So overall, I would like to hear what everyone has to say about Brie Larson and the ongoing fiasco between herself, Ryan Reynolds, and the whole Deadpool situation, and how Captain Marvel was just completely axed from this movie. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.